Welcome back. So today we are tackling one of the most common things you'll find on our website. Those are dropdowns. So you'll find them everywhere, whether it is selecting a country, selecting a payment method, or selecting a date as well. So as a tester, we need to make sure that we are able to handle them in Selenium in a reliable and in different ways as well. So now Selenium has a super handy approach to handle dropdowns using the select class, but there are also few tricks up its sleeve for those dropdowns which are not in a built-in way or not in a standard way. So I'm going to talk about the standard dropdowns in this video, and in the next one we'll talk about the dynamic ones. So when I say standard dropdowns, I am referring to a dropdown where you can select a single element or multiple element based on whatever is already populated. This is a page. This is the example that I had created for practicing dropdown. So this is the dropdown example. And if you click on it, you'll see multiple dropdowns. So today we are going to target the single dropdown where we can select single options. You can select multiple options here, or to do that, you have to use either shift to select everything in the range, or you can use control to select single elements. All right, we'll see these, and then to check what are the options available here, or whether it is disabled or not, whether a drop down is disabled or not. We are going to talk about those things in today's video. So let me pull up my PyCharm. All right, it's here. Now let me first investigate what is the object type. So let's inspect. This is a select and the ID is single select. All right, so we'll use the single select in my PyCharm, and here, if you see here, so I have already select element is driver.find element by ID single select, and this single select is again typecasted to class select. So what is the advantage of this? So, or what is the practical use of it? So this is to let Selenium know that, or let Python know that this particular element is of type select. And how do you identify that this is select? I mean, how Selenium identifies is using this class reference. So Selenium WebDriver support.select. So I have labeled this element as select. Now to select a value in a dropdown, there are three ways you can do it. One is by using the index, second is by using the value, or third is the actual text that you see there. So let's talk more on this on the application. So this is a dropdown. This is the value here. If you see here. So the value is Python listed here. The value is Java listed here. This is JavaScript. This is the value that we are targeting. Now, if you are going by index, so index would be 1, 2, 3. It's based on the order that it is appearing on the screen. But value is the value that is specified with the tag name. Now, the third one is the visible text. So if you see here, my value is JS and the visible text is JavaScript. The value is C#, but the visible text is C#. Now we will handle all three of, we are going to handle all three types of checkboxes, or all three variations in selecting the select dropdown. So the first one is single dropdown dot select by index, which will select the second option, and I have given a sleep of 1 second. Again, the second one will select C#. It is based on the value. And the third one I'm going to select by visible text. I'm selecting Java. Clear? So three things you have to understand here, three new keywords. First is this select. You have to typecast your object to a select class, then only it will be used as a select and you will be able to use the methods inside it. Then there are three different ways to approach a dropdown. You can either select it by index, select it by value, or by visible text. Let's run this and see what happens. C# and Java. So it happened quickly, but if you would have followed, then this had changed the values from C# and Java. So first is select Python, then C#, then Java. Clear. Moving on to the next example, what we are going to see here is we are going to get all the values from my dropdown here. So this is my dropdown here. Now I'm going to get all the values, or I want to pull all the values from application and get it in my IDE. So how I'm going to do? So we have to use another keyword here. Hold on. We have to use another keyword here. So this is again dot options. So you'll have the dropdown name. We have declared single dropdown is the dropdown and single dropdown dot options. Now this options we loop it and we'll try to print it. So let's run this as well. Python, C#, Java, done. Now it will pull all the values to my IDE. Let's see what it brought. So it said first option is by default select language. Second is Python, Java, C#. So using this, you can actually validate whatever elements are listed in your dropdown. Cool. So this was one thing. Another thing is whether whatever value we have selected, we have discussed this when we were trying to fill the forms. What we were doing there after selecting or after we have selected a value from a dropdown or from a checkbox, what we were doing towards the end of submission, towards the end of the form or when we were submitting, we were trying to get all the values that is actually listed on the form. So same thing we are doing here also. So after you are done filling everything in your form or while you are testing or building your test script, it's a good practice that before submitting a form, you need to check whatever values you have filled in and just keep a reference of it, or maybe you can use a screenshot as well, but I prefer this way. I push this to my logs so that whenever the log is generated, it would say that you submitted a form using these values and this is the output that you have, right? So what this is going to do, this is going to return you whatever is the selected option in a particular dropdown. All right. So here, the last option that I'm selecting is Java. So I'm expecting that I would get Java in this print statement. So let's run this. Python, C# Java should have printed now. Let's see. So currently selected is Java. Now another use case to it is like whenever you are loading an application or your application is loaded, you have your you want to check what is the default value that is listed there. So to do that in your application, you can use the same thing, but you have to verify the default values. So you don't want to perform any action on it. So you are going to comment everything and you're just going to say, I just want to validate this single dropdown first selected option. So this would give the default text value of your dropdown. Let's run this. Yeah. So should have executed. Let's see. So it says default selection is select language, right? Now, while we were doing this, I have used the same thing here, but the only difference is during this execution, I didn't make any changes to the dropdown. I just pulled the default value that is listed on the UI. Whereas in the previous one, I had made a selection and then I was trying to pull the data or pull the value that was being listed at that point of time, right? So this is pretty much about handling single dropdown or single select option. Now the next thing that we are going to take a look on is the multi-select dropdowns. Now identification is also the same. You can use ID class or whatever you want, or whatever is feasible. You can also use XPath, use a CSS selector. It's up to you how you want to explore your application and how comfortable you are using any of the techniques. I have used plain and simple ID because it was directly listed. I could have used a CSS as well, but it's my wish to use an ID. Yeah. All right. So again, single in terms of how Selenium handles it, whether it is a single select or multi-select, it's going to treat both of them using the select class itself. So for you, there should not be any difference that you are going to use a separate class for multi-select. So multi-select is also same. Just use select class. So this is my select class. I have given the element reference here. Again, what I am doing here is select by all three options, select by visible text, select by value, and select by index. Plain and simple, nothing fancy here. So let me comment this one because I no longer need this. Let's run this. Now, so if you see, all three options are selected. So this is my 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4th index value that I have selected on my Selenium script. So it selected the 4th index, and Python and Java, where the Python and Java is also selected. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to deselect. And while we deselect, I am going to give a wait here. So I'll say time.sleep and I'll say sleep for 1 second. And after every deselection, I'm going to give the same thing. Time.sleep, time.sleep. Clear? Now let's run this. So what we are doing here is we are first selecting Python, Java and the fourth index. Then we are deselecting the fourth index. What is my fourth index? I'm deselecting C++. Alright. And then I am deselecting Java. So towards the end, only Python should be selected. Let's run this. Selected, one gone, second gone, and my execution should have completed without any fail. Clear? So this is how you are going to deselect options from a multi-level or from a multiple select. How do I say? A multi drop down maybe, or a drop down which has multiple options to select. Anything. Anyway. Now this was one. Now the next thing that I want to talk about is this keyword deselect all. So what this does is it will deselect everything in just one go. So if we run this, so what the process is same, it's going to select all those three options and then it will deselect everything after waiting 1 second. 1 second done. So it deselected everything. So this is one quick way of deselecting everything. But if you want to do it one by one, you have to go by the options or go by the other methods that we had talked about in select class. Moving on. So now we are going to see how you can use conditional statement. So here we are doing two things in this example, the example 8, we are doing two things. The first one is we are pulling all the options from that multi-select, and that multi-select we are going to validate whether if the option text has JavaScript, then I am going to select it using the visible text JavaScript. So this is an ideal way how you would be doing in your applications also while you are building script for your application under test. So you are going to validate the option and then you're going to select it. Similarly, we are doing it here. So what we are doing for options in multi dropdown dot options, it will pull out all the options, and if the option is JavaScript, then do this and end. So just for fun, I'm going to print all the options and just to see what it returns, whether it is a tuple, whether it is a list. So I'm just going to print options. That's it. Let's run this. So you saw, so it clicked on JavaScript after a wait of 1 second. So that means now this is what I'm going to talk about. All right. So what this print option returned? So this returned the actual raw format, how Selenium reads this. So it has returned me the options that were present inside that particular dropdown. So I had how many? I had one select that I was trying to pull values from. So I just printed options. Now, if you want to validate what text is inside that option, you have to write there options.text. Exactly what I'm doing in the next line. So this would return you the actual values that is from the multi dropdown. So this is about how you conditionally select options in your dropdown. Now the next thing we are going to talk about is how do you handle disabled dropdowns. So let's uncomment this one. So what I'm trying to do here is, let's open the application. If you see this particular select, this one, let me inspect it one more time. Oh no, not this one, this one. So this is a disabled select. Disabled select as in you cannot select any values from it. So it is disabled. So how do you verify in Selenium that this particular dropdown is disabled? So there's a keyword to it. So let me just change this to here. Now I'm not going to run this example first. I'm going to just talk about the initial or the straightforward way that we have in Selenium. So you are just going to say disable dropdown dot is enabled. So this would give you true if the dropdown is enabled. So what we are expecting here, so we are expecting this to be false, and I'm going to store this in a variable to see what I am getting here. So I'll say dropdown type is equals to disable dropdown this, and then I'm going to print dropdown type. Let's run this. Oh, I forgot to comment this part. So what it says false. So that means this particular dropdown is disabled. This is one way of checking. There are other ways as well. You can use a JavaScript method as well, but we haven't talked about it. So I'm saving it for the next video, or in the future, we'll talk about how you can use JavaScript to get the value of a particular dropdown or any web element. But there is also a way in Selenium itself, in a more, there is another method actually called get attribute. So you are going to say disable dropdown dot get attribute, and you will say disable, and you are expecting this to be true. So you will say, just let me take a temporary variable value, and I will print the value here, right? So both of them are going to do the same thing. It's going to check whether it is disabled or not, but the first one will return false. The second one will return true. Let's run this. So it did its part. So if you see, the first one returned me false, the second one is returning me true. So it's just a different way how you can do certain things in Selenium, but you can use any of these two. Now, another way to do it without these options is you can use it in a try catch block or try and except block. My bad once. So you have a try block where you are trying to find the element and you are directly trying to select it. So it's going to throw you an exception, element not interactable exception. So this is also a type of exception which you are going to face when you're using select. And also keep in mind that there are different type of exceptions that Selenium throw. At times, interviewer will ask you as well to check whether you are experienced enough or have you faced these kind of exceptions. That helps the interviewer to build a mindset that you have a background of working with exceptions and Selenium. Okay. So let's run this and see what happens. So what we are expecting here is it would just say cannot interact with disable dropdown, because my dropdown is anyways not interactable or disabled. Now what happened here? It didn't throw an exception. Let me check. So now this is also a learning here. Like what happens is this is purely browser dependent, or it's majorly like, so what happened here is Selenium didn't validate the disabled attribute while it was on the select level. So it had validated the disabled attribute when I was checking for it here. When I'm explicitly asking is enabled or is disabled, then it is going to check for it. But while I select a value here, so Selenium doesn't validate the disabled attribute on the select level. It just interacts with the DOM directly. So this would actually fail your script without failing your script. So if I'm going to use this, I just tried executing it outside my try block. So it's not raising an exception here. So a cleanest way out is use is enabled, validate it, whether it is enabled or not, and then interact with it. So the exception will only be thrown here when the browser strictly blocks the action, or but however, it is not a practical scenario right now to get this exception for me. So a clean workaround is use is enabled, validate whether it is enabled or not, and then you perform your interaction. Because if I do in this approach, I'm not getting any exception. So this might fail the script as well while we are executing. We would be expecting that we are, say based on a rule-based access, certain fields are disabled for me, but I'm trying to make the changes there to see whether I'm able to do it or not. In those scenarios, the script just passes. So there's no practical way that you can see that this script has failed. So the only way is you have to do your own checks properly, and you have to own your script, and you don't have to rely on the try and accept block for these cases or these scenarios. So now there are 3 exceptions that I wanted to talk on in Selenium. So no such element exception, we had seen this earlier also. What or when does this occur? This occurs when the element is not found in your DOM. So you have used an incorrect reference to the element. Element not interactable. This happens when the particular element is disabled or hidden. Done. Now the next one is the unexpected tag name exception. So this happens when you are going to use select on a non-select object. So let's say there is a submit button in the page here. You see? So there's a submit button here. So if you click on it, this will trigger the submit action. This is nowhere related to a select class. So what I'm doing here is I've just classified this as a select. However, it is not a select. So it should raise this exception saying unexpected tag name exception. Let's run this. So I'm not bothered about what happens on the UI. I just expect this error. Yeah. So it says cannot use select on a non-select element. So it raised this exception, but we have handled it. So I printed a custom message instead of printing the technical error. So that's all I wanted to talk on the single select and multi-select. Now in the next one, I'm going to talk about how you can handle the dynamic select options, maybe the ones which are driven by Ajax or ones which are using database fetching techniques or something similar. So, yeah. So having said that, so this would be a wrap for this video. I'll see you in the next one where we talk about the auto suggest and the non-select dropdowns. Right. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.